I hit a point when I knew I needed to stop taking drugs, but I was scared of not fitting in or being rejected or whatever. I carried on with these unhealthy habits, and I did things that I didn't want to do when I knew it was wrong. For example, I went on holiday with a group of lads to Berlin for like a drug-fueled holiday, basically, and I knew I was in an awful place, and I didn't want to go. Like, I was in a terrible place. I just split up with my girlfriend. It was like I felt so lonely, and the last thing I wanted to do was be in a really dark club
dingy
with like
Berlin basement kind of club.
And it's like, that was the last thing I wanted. But I was scared of missing out, and I was scared of not fitting in. So that trip was the catalyst for me to stop taking drugs, because we went on like a super heavy night out, took way too many drugs, and then it was at a time when I was really struggling with suicidal thoughts. And I think the thoughts had always, they'd always been there, but I could, I knew I could control them to a degree, or it wasn't, it wasn't really me thinking it or whatever. But when we got back after that night out and finally went to bed, it was like 8 a.m. or whatever. I'd taken so many drugs that they'd almost like taken over in my brain. I had this persistent thought of essentially like, telling me to kill myself, basically. And it was the only thing that was going through my head, and it was horrendous because it was so powerful. It honestly felt like someone was in my head. I could feel like someone was saying something in my head, and literally, and it was the only thing I was hearing. Like I tried to go to bed, I tried to shut my eyes, and the voice was louder, and it went on for so long. I remember being in the hostel room with my friends, and there was 5 other people there. They were all asleep, so I felt super scared because I was like, this thing's telling me to go and do this, and everyone's sleeping so soundly, and they seem so peaceful. And I think it was just that period it was like 4 hours, just horrendous. And I think the next day I felt really kind of like scarred. It felt like a bit of a trauma, and I remember feeling so on edge. And I think it was then I was like, I cannot keep doing this to myself, because I'm not helping anybody. And it was that period when I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And that's when I just cut things off completely and didn't take them for such a long time.
Well, and one of the risks with drugs is you kind of, like, you're describing this in a narrative of, like, it was kind of building up to that kind of thing. It was already not feeling right for you. But you never know with drugs what kind of reaction you're going to have in any given moment. A few years ago, I smoked pot with an ex-boyfriend, and whether it was just that it was old or it was late, something, who knows. But I had a few hours where I was in, I think, the darkest place I've ever been in my life. And I thought, I can understand why people kill themselves. Like, I really felt like I have to get out of myself because this feels so awful. And the relief when it finally started to pass, and I feel like myself again. And, this is not to be like, drugs are bad, don't do drugs, obviously, but that's part of the risk. That's part of what makes, that's like the frisson, right? That makes it almost a little exciting because you're like afraid, could something, could this go a bad way? Could I have a bad trip? Or like, will I be lucky?
Yeah, and we don't ever get taught how to take them safely, right?
Absolutely.
As well. Like, we don't ever get taught what to do if you're in like a bad trip, if you're in a bad place or anything. Which is why sometimes it can be helpful. Some of the advice people give about taking them safely is have a sober sitter with you, which is obviously a lot of responsibility for them. But I don't think at any point, especially like, I cringe a little bit when I think about how young I was, and like when I used to take drugs and stuff, I just was going by what my friends were doing, and like, okay, he's kind of like a big dude, I probably shouldn't take that much, I'll probably do like half of that kind of thing. But like, that's not a safe way to do it, and you never know what you're going to get, and it's really just a Russian roulette, I guess, of when you're taking them, of if it's going to be a good experience for you, or if you're even going to be physically safe as well as mentally safe.
Absolutely. Well, and so much of it has to do with context, and particularly when you're young, I don't think you think a lot about the context that you're in, who you're with, what kind of environment you're in, all of those things. And I think that really affects how drugs impact people when it comes down to it.
Certain setting.
Absolutely. Yeah.